Genesis 14 verse 1 to verse 24. God has delivered the enemy into your hands. Genesis chapter 14 marks Abram's first involvement in war. Abram participated in the war in the valley of Siddim because his nephew Lot and Lot's possessions were captured during the battle between the 4 and 5 kings. Verse 12. Chapter 14 begins, in the time of. This refers to the time when Lot, having left Abram, moved his tents as far as Sodom, Genesis 13 verse 12, and lived there, and when Abram, having sent Lot away, moved his tents and came to dwell at the oak of Mamre in Hebron, where he built an altar to the Lord, Genesis 13 verse 18. At that time 4 kings and 5 kings were at war, and Lot and his possessions were taken captive. Although war broke out, it had no effect on Abram, who was building an altar to the Lord and living in a tent, while Lot, deeply entangled in the world, was drawn into the war along with the unbelievers. This is something we should note. Faith answers this question thus, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. 1 Timothy 6 verse 6 to verse 9. When Abram heard that his nephew and brother Lot had been taken captive, he took 318 trained servants from his household and pursued him as far as Dan. Verse 14, he recovered all the spoils of the captivity, including his nephew Lot, his possessions, the women, and the people. Verse 16, with a heart full of love to save his nephew Lot from his predicament, Abram disregarded the disparity in military strength and relied on God's help to rescue Lot. Here we see that Abram's faith had matured even further than before. When Abram returned in triumph, he was greeted by 2 very different kings, Bela, king of Sodom, and Melchizedek, king of Salem. We should recall in Hebrews 13 verse 13 that, the people of Sodom were wicked in the sight of the Lord. Therefore, the king of Sodom tempted Abram with worldly fame and wealth, while Melchizedek, king of Salem, is explained in Hebrews as follows: Abraham also gave him a tithe of what he had. And the first meaning of his name is King of Righteousness, and he is also called King of Salem, which means King of Peace, Hebrews 7 verse 2. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. Hebrews 7 verse 1, without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God, remains a priest continually. Hebrews 7 verse 3, therefore, Melchizedek, king of Salem, is an image of Jesus Christ, who came out to bless Abram. Abram could not accept 2 kings at the same time, he had to choose one. The king of Sodom provided Abram with worldly riches and honors, including fame, wealth, and glory from men. However, Melchizedek, the king of Salem, said that the glory belonged not to Abram, but to God, saying, Blessed is the Most High God who has delivered his enemies into your hand. Verse 20. He wanted Abram to know that the true hero was not Abram, but the Most High God, Lord of heaven and earth. Verse 19. In this situation, which side would you choose? If Abraham had chosen the king of Sodom, it would have meant secularization and corruption. What would have become of him when Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed? The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people, but you can keep the goods. Verse 21, Abram resolutely refused, saying, I have sworn to the Lord Most High, the Lord, that I will not take anything that is yours, not even a thread or a sandal strap, so that you will not say, I have made Abram rich. Verses 22 and 23. Abram, who gave his wife Sarai to Pharaoh when he went down to Egypt, received many sheep and cattle, camels, male and female donkeys, and male and female servants, in return. Genesis 12 verse 16, how different this is from the Abram of today. Abram not only won a victory in the war when he went out, but also overcame the temptations of Satan upon his return. Melchizedek, king of Salem, came out to bless Abram, saying, May the Most High God, Lord of heaven and earth, bless Abram. Blessed is the Most High who has delivered his enemies into your hand. Verses 19 and 20, he also gave Abram bread and wine, and Abram gave a tithe to Melchizedek. Verse 20, this is the first mention of tithes, and it should be seen as a confession of faith. Linking the meaning of tithes to blessings is a lower level of faith. Tithing is an acknowledgement that God is my Lord, the Lord of my family. It is a confession of faith surrendering sovereignty to God. Furthermore, Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have the right to take your spoils, but if I do, you will go back and say, I made Abram rich. Then the glory that is rightfully yours, the God who blessed me, will be yours. Therefore, I will not take anything that is yours, not even a thread or a shoelace. Abram's actions were another declaration of faith, acknowledging that only God deserves glory and that only God's name is most holy. In the past, Abram had relinquished his right of first choice, saying, if you go to the left, I will go to the right, if you go to the right, I will go to the left. This time, he again relinquished the rich spoils. In chapter 14, we see that Abram's faith matured through his experience in Egypt. This also serves as a warning to Lot, who had befriended the world, to leave Sodom. The revelation from chapter 14 is that God is the Lord of heaven and earth, the Most High God, who delivered the enemies who threatened the saints into our hands, a God worthy of praise. Life, material possessions, fame, status, health, and happiness are all given to us by God, which is why we can enjoy them. Glory to a God worthy of praise. Questions of today. 1. Why did Lot get involved in the war? 2. Please explain the maturity of Abram's faith. 3. Where did Abram's strength come from, allowing him to defeat the combined forces of 4 kings with a smaller army?